go and do things and you give them advice. Later on, they come back when they realize life is hard out there. Then they run around and bring gossip, innuendos, backstabbing, and so on in a family that is stable. Anybody who has lived in a family that has several other women, or someone has married, or your father has married another wife, these things do happen. Children who were there first would like to come back to claim quite a lot of difficulties, create chaos if you are not careful and you don't stand firm. So the Daily Express, the same story. The Daily Mail, the same story. Harry, I would like my father and brother back. So what happened? Where did they go? This is exactly, why did you allow them to go? Then now you want them back. These are some of the things that are making everything work now and talked to. So I don't know exactly whether the first link collapsed or it was sent by who, but I don't know. Thank you very much. Then that is the Daily Mail. And then we have the Telegraph. The Daily Telegraph says, Prince Harry, I want my father and brother back. You see, there is nothing. We are fed up. We are looking for bills, for money to pay bills here in Britain. We are not going to be entertaining this rubbish where these guys went to. He was told, he was begged, he was told, please don't go out. Is to summon these younger men, bring them back to the palace and talk to them as a father. Make sure that they understand that life without controversy at times is the life that you want to see. Life without controversy, Miriam, is the life you would like to see. If you have life with controversy, is the time bomb that is a disease that always kills you. So for me, also this year, I've decided, Miriam, life without controversy. Don't come closer to me when you have your controversy. Sort it out elsewhere. And I have no time for people, mainly those who have not gone to school, or they are pretending to go near the classroom, but they are not going. And I have no time for not telling the truth. So, Elif Ziwanda, you can laugh, and the media, but that is my stand. Those are, this year, no. I have no time for rubbish, stupidity, to engage in side shows. I was watching myself on News Central, picked as one of the best analysts on the African continent this morning. Story picked up. Then you want to come and tell me stupidity? No, I should carry myself with the highest esteem, Elvis and Miriam. So this time I will not entertain you. I will educate you and drop you out of my platform. So Miriam, that is the story of Britain. Do we have any credibility of a royal household that goes to splash itself in the headlines? That's the question to you.
I really don't care about the monarchy, Doc.
I know, and Elif Ziwanda, Miriam doesn't care about the royal. I care because Her Majesty, His Majesty the King is the head of state of my country, particularly Britain, where I live, and the respect is very paramount. We respect. To be very honest, Miriam, looking at alternatives because we have decided that this year our discussions and our platforms, let them be like engaging, like let's talk like we are talking from the household as an African setup, instead of talking as if we are programmed like a wazungu. You know, you are programmed to be going for tea at 10 o'clock. The bell is ringing, you run. No, let's engage ourselves. Maybe I'm looking at the alternatives for Africa. And I wonder, don't you think that for Africa to come out of this quagmire, where we still have conflicts, where we have debt rising, borrowing more money and more without knowing where we shall end, whether we shall end or we might not end, or we shall, isn't it time, therefore, for Africa to rethink of the model of governance? Maybe, you know, when the Queen died, my God, the millions of people that poured out of the cities. It's not one city, Miriam. It's not one city. In the name of God, it's not one city, London. All cities of United Kingdom, in the square, in every homelet, home, valley, hamlet, in every place, every park, people came out in millions. The respect for the institution, the respect for the institutions of governance is what we lack in Africa. It's what we lack in Africa. This year, let's talk the truth with some people. You are telling people you are giving people money, but one medicine, one tablet for curing pain cost 400 shillings. Hello? Hello, Elvis? The medical care, the health care, the textbook, the exercise book, Miriam, is higher than even your heart. You know, parents like you who are now just taking your children to school, Miriam, as you smile, you are just smiling to put on appearing, keeping appearances. But surely inside here, we have a problem. We have to say the truth. And this year, I'm going to be saying the truth. If African heads of state get annoyed with me, I'm going to punch Africa. I'm going to talk the ills of Africa. I'm not going to talk about any country in particular, but all the ills of Africa that creates Africa to be called a begging a ball of the world. Yet we are people who should come back home, stand firm, even give directives of where Qatar should not come, where the airline should come or not. Kenya Airways went and did an agreement with South African Airways. If we had that agreement, that would be one of the biggest airlines in the region. It could compete with Qatar. Have you ever seen a South African airline dropping passengers in Jomo Kenyatta International Airport? Maybe, Miriam, I'm not there, tell me. Is it happening?
I'm not sure. Could be, I don't know.
Finito, Nati. They speak Indian, Gujarati, Nati. So we have things that we do on African continent. That's why I'm asking you, Miriam, don't you think even the system, the people who have safeguarded their system for 1,900 years, actually for thousands and thousands of years, the kingdoms the hierarchy of kingdoms, the dynasty, grew up for a long time.
Yes. And we had
They are better off.
And we had wonderful systems, Doc. The same kingdoms and the same systems destroyed our own systems here. We had wonderful systems.
No. We are coming there. That's second phase.
Okay.
But let's first come back. Don't you think that we can now rethink after they have destroyed our kingdoms? Can we now also rethink like a China, which was 40 years ago, with one small rice scheme in Kivimba, in my country, Uganda, producing enough rice to feed Chinese and half takes to Ugandans. That's all. That's what China had 30 years, 40 years ago. And another railway whose train could break on the way before it arrives in Dollar. That's it. But China went back after the death of Mao Zedong. They went back and thought and sat down and said, we have had systems before. We had the rulers who were very brutal. We had a communist party. But is our communist party working? Isn't it time now for Africa to sit back and think of what is the best governance system, other than having competitive systems that goes on borrowing, gonya, increase. I don't know whether gonya means beg. No, we are becoming the gonyas of the world. Everywhere, every leader you see in Africa, in a plane, we are going to borrow. We have gone and signed this. We have done that. No! Time has come to change. Come back and do the governance. The money you borrow, where does it go? Where does it go? You borrow the money, but when it reaches the ground, within a short time, it's already dead. It has disappeared. Someone has built apartments. Some countries in the Africa like apartments, like, I don't know why, but they have forgotten that the human beings who used to sleep on trees. Miriam, there you are. You can take it from there. You had a point.
Yeah, and I think that's what Chinese, Doc, you've given a very good example. As much as they're lacking in other aspects, but their system seems to be working for them, and that's why China has become one of the leading powerhouses in the world. And they've refused, to have the Western influence on their way of life, and they have maintained that, and it's working. It's working for them, and so they're in a battle to protect their identity as a people. In a world where people are confused, and we've seen a lot of countries, especially here in Africa, we're still suffering from a lot of, identity crisis, because we have had a lot of influence here in the continent. But China has refused to, and has been fighting that influence. So it has, been able to maintain its own identity as a people. A lot of things are not working very well there, but there is something to say about China and how it has been able to work itself and its people to be where it is today, that perhaps, instead of just fighting and criticizing China all the time, we could learn something actually and see what are some of the things that perhaps we could embrace, even for us here in the continent, from China, so that we are able to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, and also protect our identity. But I think that is a different conversation altogether.
It's not a different medium. It's not a different conversation. It's the right conversation.
But we're so confused. One time, we don't know if we want to adopt the Britain way of doing things or the US way of. Look at our constitution, for instance, here in Kenya. It is a hybrid of the UK and the US. We've borrowed highly, and it did not look at the local politics, the local, realities, and now instead of serving us, we are constantly under conflict because it did not factor in the realities in this country, and we have to keep grappling, with this. So, identity crisis, Doc.
I think Wanda, Miriam brings in something very, very crucial. The constitution is in Africa keeps us in identity crisis saga. I think the bold step tomorrow, Miriam, take one bold step and do an analysis on our constitution or your constitution. Does your constitution in Kenya, for example, does your constitution in Uganda, does your constitution in Nigeria, does your constitution in Tanzania, does your constitution in Zimbabwe give you identity crisis as a national? Yes, Wanda, are you in identity crisis?
As Miriam is putting it, Africans don't live their lives. Africans live other people's lives.
Do you live borrowed life?
Exactly. We don't live our own life. If we were living our own life, then African traditional religion could still be being practiced in Africa. But we are not doing it. Therefore, from our politics, the social lives, in all spheres of life, we are not living our lives. Even the dressing code, we are not, in generally, everything that we are doing is not ours. It's not bad to do what someone else is doing if I'm told it's positive. But now it becomes worse when you do what other person, or when you do what belongs to a different person, then it brings you issues and you're not ready to realize that the problem here that I'm leading life that is not mine, that you end up adopting a system that was designed to offer solution to a country that is miles away from yours. Then you still embrace it, not knowing that someone designed that system based on either the environmental factor and the social factor at their own ends. Therefore, Africa is not living its own life. We are on a borrowed life. Only that whoever borrowed us this life decided not to claim it back. So he was gracious enough to borrow it to us.
Can we simply say, as we discuss, because this is a topic that we need to juggle in, can we say one that we are in hell before we arrive at hell?
No, Miriam will not want that one that we are in hell. She said she loves Africa so much.
No, we seem to be in hell. In some African countries, we are in hell. Yes. Tell me, if an African can slaughter a dog,
yes,
and put a dog on a tree and actually skin it, cut the head and throw it there for you, and post it on social media, are we not in hell already? In a community where we don't eat dogs, we are not in China. If you found Africans selling snakes and telling you a restaurant for snakes, do you enter that restaurant, Miriam, and eat? Are we not already in hell? If you find Africans in 21st century, in my country, Uganda, knowing very well that fireworks kills, and they rain towards the fireworks, are we not in hell? No, honestly. What is it that you are going? No, what is it that you are going to see in the fireworks, which you cannot see from your house? And you are running very fast. You are running very fast. to go and see fireworks. It's stampeding on children. We have just discovered in Kampala new bodies of children who had not been discovered. Are we not in hell? Let's talk the truth, Jamen. Allah. Let's talk the truth. We are already in hell. Miriam might not say we are already in hell.
We're in a lot of
Because
trouble.
because if you are living, no, Miriam, you might not be in hell, but you are living with such people who are in hell.
In a lot of trouble, yes.
We share the taxis. We share the matatu with hell, all people who stampede. Why do you run and you step on a child to go and see a fireworks? What happened to Makerere University? The best institution in Africa. Have we lost morals? Have we? Tumepotea. And we go on borrowing. The debt is rising. But we are borrowing without seeing back at home. We are borrowing to buy, to give foreign exchange to people to buy fireworks. Did you know that? The man who brought that fireworks used our foreign exchange that killed people in our country. One day I stopped talking about Kenya. So you will help me whether there was any fireworks that killed anybody in Kenya. You will tell me. I stopped. I no longer discuss Kenya. I will discuss Kenya on an African scale. Kenya managed its festivals very well, apart from few accidents, 1 or 2 which are normal. There was no wedding that does not have a fight. If there is one that finishes without a fight, then that marriage will break in 2 months. Miriam, are you going to oppose me? I've given you a challenge. There is no wedding.
If a wedding starts with a fight, it has started with the wrong footing, dog.
No, but I'm now telling you, there is no wedding that ends without a fight. Look at all these weddings that are organized. No, honestly, in Muranga, in where, look at them. There are 2 people fighting over the last bottle of the beer that was hidden somewhere.
That's not a serious fight. I thought it had to do with the bride and groom. If it's just the people.
No, that is still a function.
Yeah.
The function will not end without a fight. Believe me or not, this year we are imparting knowledge, which is real. So when you are wedding and you don't have a fight, and you go home and say nobody was drunk and people were fighting. In African culture, Miriam was talking about the colonials came and destroyed our empires.
They destroyed
Yes.
who we were. Left us confused.
Yeah, the Oyo Empire, the Ashanti Empire, the Buganda Empire, the Kabalega Empire of Bunyoro, the Zulu Empire, the Shaka Zulu, the Nyamwezi. You see, these things are here. The Suk, the Axum, they are here, up here, Ethiopia, where the war has just been raging for some 2 years until Uhuru Kenyatta went to solve the problem. That was the Kush Empire. How many students today know about the Kush Empire? If you ask students in our classes, the migration of people, the Hamites, the Bantu, the Nilotics, where did they come from? He will say they came from God in the sun, in the moon, up there. That we have killed even the education. So the debt rises from different angles, aspects of life. Education rises the debt. Because we are training accountants who become PS, CS. What do? Do they reason? Miriam has just told us there is an identity crisis on the continent of Africa. That we go and borrow a constitution which is not ours.
Does not fit within the context that we are forcing it to work.
It doesn't fit an African constitution. So why do you in Africa want to hold a free, so-called free and fair election, and when the results are out, you just tell your people to come to the streets to smash the windows?
Expensive, free and fair.
No, I'm leaving you. You know, I'm dodging that point. I'm leaving you two people from Kenya to discuss it.
And not just in Kenya. Elections in Africa, Doc, we've been talking about this, is very, very expensive across the continent.
And when you talk about the continent, the elections in Africa, guess how many countries are going to have elections this year?
And they add to the debt that we are talking about now, today. The
exactly, exactly. Add to the debt, including myself, Sudan. I can see Otto Manes, Mr. Menes Otto from Denmark. I don't know what point he has said, Miriam, pick up this is his new year. What has he said? South Sudan might also have elections. Is it?
No, elections.
I saw it.
They saw it next year
on the list.
No, they were supposed to have elections this year, but I think they are really interested in maintaining the status quo, so they pushed it to 2024 or so, unfortunately.
And how do you hold an election in South Sudan? How?
Even 2024, it will not happen.
It won't happen because there are no. Where will the money come from? If you don't have even money to, you know, I was shocked that South Sudan can arrange Amadi cars in ready to enter Congo.
Can you believe that?
Are we going? No. Are we? Let me ask one question. Are we going just to dig in Congo and maybe there is gold somewhere we want to bring back in those Amadi cars?
Of course, there's gold, but South Sudan shouldn't have sent.
Because I asked very cardinal questions the other time. Why don't we just arrange Congo, Akiamu? Let's divide it. Talking about that, the threat that we had about Kagame, Rwanda trying to shoot the plane of Tshisekedi, allegedly. Are we all right in the region? Miriam,
Well,
4 weeks, 3 weeks ago, no, 4 weeks, bear me witness, Miriam, 4 weeks ago I said, we have to be careful. Because when these guys agree, then we are dead. If they agree and you hear, they say, don't attack more territory, come back, they have a solution. Have you seen Uganda talk? No, it kept quiet. But some of the rebels are enjoying beer in some of the hotels in Kampala.
Mm-hmm.
The commanders.
Yeah. The military headquarters of M23 is in Uganda.
So you can see that. So if you are not careful and you don't listen to Matanga here, let's go slow because we could get a catastrophe. Me, I talk the truth. I've seen something which is not right. If this information is proved that an airplane of Mr. Tshisekedi was going to be knocked down, they could knock down any plane of anybody. Because you are touching the nerve if you stop the diamonds arriving in some countries, Miriam, you have killed the economy. The debt will rise. That's the point I was looking for. Are you not seeing where I'm going? If you stop, how can you be an export of lithium? Lithium, is it lithium? Is it yes, lithium, something like that, which is for the production of high batteries. What? You don't have even a small hole where a rat has hidden, where you can pull out one particle. But on stock exchange in Paris and London, you are trading in diamonds. How do you explain to the world? I'm asking cardinal questions here. This year 2023 tunasema ya ukweli. Wale wenye wapendi sisi, God behaves in a wrong way, in a very good way. He matches those. The more you hate Mathanga, the more he also watches you. So don't stop us from talking these things. You don't have a gold mine, but you have a stock exchange company that sells diamonds. Where do you get these diamonds? Wanda, I yield the mic. Is it becoming hot here? Mr. Wanda.
Yeah. In fact, I was listening to the story of President Paul Kagame, the allegations and the plain allegations. Then I remembered the 1994, what led to the genocide in Rwanda. Not so different from that. A plane was brought down. Then two presidents lost their lives, in which the Hutu Tutsis now decided to pick a fight in it. When you look at this, I'm trying to imagine if these allegations were actually true, and if it actually happened. Then, as it happened that a president is gone, we have someone who comes out and say, or points a finger and say, so and so the one who was brought down this plane. I'm trying to imagine the kind of bloodshed that the region was about to, well, could have faced. Therefore, the region is not okay. We first started talking about it as a Cold War, as a case where probably nations will want to be in a conflict, but it wasn't that. It wasn't of a physical. It was probably a war of words. Country A is not okay with country B, but now things are now turning out to be a bit different. From where I sit, I know that probably President Kagame could have been used some times back with some quotas that probably we don't know. That is an allegation, supposedly.
Can you in summary just say, can I ask you a question as you proceed? Is he
Yes.
ending up like a Savimbi?
Okay, it's I'll not get into the Savimbi, but
Wanda, you are a historian,
yes,
and a land fellow who is not shy to say what is right. Savimbi was used by the West to dismember African states, including killing Africans, including killing South Africans, bombing them. But the way Savimbi was turned against, Miriam, you don't find even one road in Africa named in the name of Johannes Savimbi.
it's true.
The man from a place called Huambo, the headquarters of UNITA. So leaders in Africa, those who go on chest bumping, running around, that we have friends in the West, you have nothing, please be careful.
And
Look at Matata's eyes. I have been in the West for 38 years. I've studied the systems in the West. There is nobody here who can lie to me what type of systems that I don't know. International Institute of Strategic Studies, I'm a life member. Chatham House, I'm a life member. The analysis of the globe can be seen. So for you, when you say chest bump around the whole world, that you are worth the person who is manageable, you manage the whole world, you go on cutting people's legs, you know, even telling people to bring your women, their women to you. My friend, when they turn on you, you have nothing, no space.
And that is what the doc is happening right now. Just, of course, the U.S. has been constantly, accusing Rwanda, and then just maybe 3 weeks ago, France came out to accuse Rwanda, and just a few days ago, now the EU, the same EU that has been supporting Rwanda and has been a great partner with Rwanda. So I think it's the same case we are seeing, and what you're saying is really, really important, and this is what is happening right now. They are tired of, and because it's becoming very difficult to continue supporting and legitimizing some of these things that Rwanda is being accused of doing. The same way when you look at Rwanda and you look at Israel, it's the same thing. You can't continue supporting some of these things that even that government is doing the same as Rwanda, so they are becoming a liability. They're becoming a liability, and now they're coming out. But it is unfortunate because they are the same powers that have really enabled, Rwanda to continue doing what it is doing. Rwanda greatly relies on funding from this country. Its economy relies on funding and this partnership from these Western countries. So they have enabled. And if at all these allegations are true, the way they keep, I was reading 2 days ago, AU tells Rwanda to stop funding M23. That means EU, not AU, but EU. That means EU has substantial evidence that indeed Rwanda is supporting M23. So now you wonder, why can't they sanction Rwanda then? If they did that, they will change the trajectory of this conflict, because Rwanda greatly relies on their support, even as far as its economy is concerned. So I think this is empty rhetoric until they're able to back these claims with some action that can actually result to a different way of managing this conflict. It's still empty rhetoric. They have been the supporters of Rwanda. They have been the supporters of Rwanda all through, even throughout, this conflict. So. But I think slowly but surely they are turning against, Rwanda, and President Paul Kagame will find it very increasingly difficult to perhaps continue doing whatever it is that he's being accused of doing there.
There's something I'm trying to clearly follow through to see the unfolding of this. We have, when you look at how things are now turning out, it's like Rwanda is now walking on its own side. On its own. Some few days ago, we have always had General Muhoozi referring to President Kagame as my uncle. Then at times, General Muhoozi has told people openly in his tweets that if you attack my uncle, you are equal to us attacking me. When you look at how things are now turning out, like President Kagame is on his own. At the same time, General Muhoozi is not talking. Therefore, I'm trying to find out. I'm so clearly or keenly looking at what happens next. That will his nephew ignore now the uncle and let the uncle fight on his own? Or this nephew will want to stand by the side of the uncle and still protect the uncle? As of now, General Muhoozi is not saying anything. So we can't predict what he's thinking about. But he has always told us, Paul Kagame is my uncle. And if you attack my uncle, you're equal to us attacking me, I will fight you. Now, and therefore on that one, I'm keenly looking into what will happen next. Then the other thing that now makes this a bit different is that if President Kagame has been used before, they used him, then they allowed him to invite other person on board. If President Kagame was serving the interests of the West, then they allowed President Kagame bring in his nephew, who was General Muhoozi. And in this case, you have now created, you have created a unit that you don't just cut one section and leave the other one hanging. If you want to cut, then cut both the two.
So,
And
so
if I'm told Kagame is cut out,
where are you heading on this?
I'm seeing a very serious conflict here.
Yes,
That
yes.
the West could be imagining that they are cutting away President Kagame, only to create something that they can't even contain. Because if I'm told they will fail to contain General Muhoozi and President Museveni, then believe me, no, cutting away President Kagame will be equal to creating a serious conflict. And in this case, they will knock people's heads in the region. They will want now to pick a replacement of President Kagame, either in the name of Kenya, I don't know, or either in the name of someone else to replace. Now, will this person be able to work with General Muhoozi and President Museveni that they have decided to work with? Because the relationship of President Museveni is still intact. He's not having any conflict with the US. Therefore, I'm seeing a case where the US could be, or in this case, it is a supposedly an alleged, that they could be plucking out Kagame, probably introducing a different figure that will not be able to work with General Muhoozi and Museveni. We know that the US openly told us that they sponsored the Kenyan elections. I don't want to imagine so much of what is not written on the wall, but I know they told us that they chipped in some good amounts in the Kenyan elections. You don't just give money when you don't have an agenda. So I don't know which agenda was that.
When you don't have
that they opted now to.
a horse in the race.
Yes, Miriam.
When you don't have a horse in the race, you don't support. And also, it's interesting. They keep bringing up the issue of M23. Nobody is talking about the FDLR that the DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo's government is being accused of supporting. So,
Okay. Wandanda Medium, I want to ask one question. If you find your child has stolen your vegetables and eaten them, or you find him putting a hand in the jar, in the pot, you're a parent, both of you are parents, what do you do? Hey, please, as we come to date, we are now at the moment we are discussing root causes that a good economy that was hyper. There was a hyper about this Rwanda. A very good GDP. Every reference was made on Rwanda. They didn't have enough foreign debt. Wasn't the son putting the hand in the jar? What happened? What went wrong? Is Rwanda coming closer to saying, how do you now disentangle from the jar and the hand and the product, which you have always, every meeting, Kigali, every meeting, everywhere. You know, Commonwealth, Kigali.
They placed it on a pedestal, so now they're finding it very difficult to eat back their words.
In fact, against some of the international conference centers like KICC, and the Kampala International Conference Center.
Doc, allow me to just stop you for a moment. You brought up the issue of Commonwealth, and Rwanda was admitted. It applied to join it. It joined, and it hosted the Commonwealth Summit, and it was great. I have a problem because of how they treat Zimbabwe. They've removed Zimbabwe. Rwanda has, when you look at the records of what President Mnangagwa is being accused and what, Paul Kagame is being accused of doing in both countries, in Rwanda it's even worse, but they don't have a problem of even holding this conference there. Britain does not have a problem of holding this conference there, but they will not admit Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe is being accused of certain things. That Rwanda is even worse in committing these atrocities from what we see and the news that we hear. That's why I have troubles with institutions like Commonwealth as well.
You are going to, Miriam, you are going to have a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But looking at the debt analysis,
Yes.
the angle I was going on there shows you what? Every conference was, everything, every meeting,
Kigali.
every Kenya, even, do you know that some ministers in Kenya almost shifted to Kigali? That even when you have a friend and you are having a coffee, you say, maybe I'm thinking of a holiday. The lady says, I want to go to Kigali. Wanda, don't shake your head. I know you have had those conversations in the coffee shops. So I'm not saying now, I am not part of it. I've never gone, I don't go to Kigali by itself. Look, Miriam, that is exactly how proxy war has created debt ceiling that we see now going to land on one shoulder of one man. We created a debt ceiling crisis in Libya. The world was going berserk. Libya was having huge money that they wanted even to print their own money for Africa. What happened? So that's why I asked the question. You find your child stealing your vegetables, which you as a mother or a father, like me who was a single parent, I find Miriam putting the hand in the jar. I say, Miriam, what is going on here, my daughter? Why don't you just pull this and go and sit down and eat it? Why are you eating from the kitchen? Do you do that? What do you do? To wash off the shame. And you enter the kitchen with a friend of yours who has come passed by to have tea. And the way in the car when you are discussing, you are praising your child. Oh, man. Oh, Brian. Oh, Ben. Oh, Ephraim. Oh, Peter is very nice. My children, one of them is called Ephraim. Very nice. Another one is Alex. Another one is Paddy. Oh, Paddy is very good boy. And then as you open the door, the wheel, you find Paddy stealing. In fact, you do not only stealing, but he has a loaf of bread in the mouth. He can't greet the guests. And before the vegetables, the cooks, the soup is taken to the main table. He's hammering it here first. What do you do?
And that's how they propped Kagame. They placed him on a pedestal.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You have answered. They did it. They found a problem. So what do? Sacrifice him and start saying, to answer your question of saying, we have been giving you money, you have been having no debt, we even gave you 20 million euros to go and hammer those poor Mozambicans, kill them, throw them in Indian Ocean.
To go and protect France's interest in Mozambique, because that's what they're
No,
doing.
protecting the interests, but hammering.
In the name of hammering the
yes,
terrorists.
collecting them in the body bags, in the sacks.
But protecting the areas.
I don't know. I don't know what is under this Indian Ocean. It must be suffering. Since the MH377 disappeared, the one near Mozambique in Pama must have suffered of dead bodies. Do you know that the conflict in Cape Delgado was silenced in 2 weeks? Have you ever seen a village where you walk and find the dogs only? Where did the men and the women go? Ladies and gentlemen, it's a sad story. The debt relief we have in Africa. Solutions. Solution number one. For African presidents and African economies, we are political economists. We are not economic economists. We are not economically economists. We are politically economists. So we analyze the economy of Africa and the debt relief from the basis of politics. That's why we have brought in Mr. Kagame, the way he was brought up, brought in Libya, the way he was, thanked, welcomed, and allowed to buy a football club. Can somebody tell me the football club AC Milan that Gaddafi bought, who owns it now? Who owns it? Have you seen how these people gain from us? Who owns it? He went and bought it cash. Not even a shareholding, but cash, the whole of it. So Italian government has earned a living out of Africa.
A lot, and that's why they're fighting with France, because they're fighting for the same interest. Italy was gaining, still does, from Libya. So when they're making noise, it's not because France is, and we know France is bad, but it's because they're making noise because of their own interest, which is being threatened by France in Libya.
So after COVID-19, African economies, Miriam, were battered. Grave mistakes came up, grave misdeeds. And by the way, we are allowing again China Airways to bring in more men here. I don't know whether you have your airplane, the Minister of Health has made an announcement in Kenya as to whether China, the travelers coming from China, what type of measures they have put at the airports. In Europe here, where we are, there are so many measures that have been in place. Anybody coming from China has got to go back through the type of tests, even if it's not mandated to stay in a designated position. They have to go through thorough tests that prove on site that you don't have the COVID. A new virus is emerging. Africa seems not to be worried about it until it hits a few people here and there. Then we start saying it is around the continent. So when you look at the solutions, solution number one is boosting alternatives to borrowing. I want to be very chaotic by proposing that can we go back to barter trade? Why should Uganda export coffee instead of bartering coffee with Tanzania to get us money, or Tanzania to buy us what we want, which can be sold in the market of Kenya, sorry. Why don't we use alternatives to borrowing? Have African countries tried to bring in private enterprise? How many African countries on the continent are bringing in private enterprise, private ownership of people who have the money in the banks? The Africans who have money in the bank, million, and it is sitting there. Have you ever gone to the bank, you are drawing 100 shillings, and then you look, a class struggle has been created there, and the word has been written bulk. Wanda, Miriam and Wanda. A class struggle is in the bank. Miriam is drawing, or Matanga is drawing 200 shillings, and that's the only amount of money that is left on your account. But there is a gentleman who's told, or a lady who's told, can you go to this? Wanda, don't hide behind this screen. Can you tell me how you feel? Over these days now, because we are now talking about debt relief. We must help people who spend so much during Christmas and a Happy New Year. But now let me tell you, Wanda, the people who, if you go to the bank now, and you have 6 children, all of them going to boarding schools, some of them going as far as Marara, where the Magoha system through people that the students can go to Marara, to Garissa. You have to you have to look at the till. The cashier tells you, he gives you 200, but the next door to your till is being told, can you, sir, go to the other bulk? Have you, Miriam, the word is B-U-L-K, bulk.
Bulk
Bulk
transactions.
Is it bulk till?
Bulk transactions, yeah. Like you're
Bulk
served in an office, not in the...
And now, I want you to take this step forward, Wanda, today or tomorrow, go to. And you listen to the machine that is croaking. The machine that is counting the money in the bulk transaction counter. You know, depression does not come when you see it available in your face. Depression comes slowly when you hear that noise of the bulk count of the other big till. Then you can, you know, you have seen some people in the bank, they leave the cashier is put that 200 in the wallet, but sits down in the bank, because the bank is not going to say you have drawn, get out. Sits down in the bank to listen to the music of that bulk transactions. Can we try to find alternative means of borrowing? What are they? What are they? Can we bring in private investors? Britain, whose economy is stable, Britain, which economy has survived the tides of international money markets, allows Sherlocks. There are Sherlocks in Britain. Yes. Yes, tuambiane ukweli. There are Sherlocks in Britain where you can go and borrow the equivalent of the money that you want in the bank. But the worst part of that is that if you fail to pay, you also buy your copper bullet. The copper from Kirembe Mines and Ndola Katwe, Zambia. Because that's where the copper bullets come. Nobody in Europe has bullets. The copper, the cobalt, the copper that you see, why Americans are fighting for that copper. If they don't have it, the bullets will not be there. So the Sherlocks in Britain lend you money. That's an alternative means of borrowing. You go to the Sherlock, he said, I'm giving you 200,000 Kenya shillings. But I don't want you to bring this money until June. But each month, I want you to be paying an extra 10,000 shillings on top of the 200. Give me an interest of 10,000, which you pay to my account every month. Then when it is 6 months, you return me the 200. Isn't that a better deal? Your children will go to school. If you are working and earning a living, you will be able in 6 months to return that money, make good books, and borrow. So government must also now become, I'm not suggesting your government, I'm suggesting every African government should introduce Sherlock style of borrowing.
We have ours here. I don't know if Hustler Fund.
You have yours?
I don't know if Hustler Fund qualifies, but we do have Sherlocks too, I think.
Does Kenya have Sherlocks?
We do.
Wanda, have you ever been? Let's be very direct. Have you ever been to one of them? Who tells you to bring your logbook?
Yeah, I think in Kenya we have a number of them.
Why can't the government use the logbook of the parliament? Governments can use a logbook of certain things. We have to, in Africa, any government in Africa can use its collateral to borrow money. The state can borrow money. Instead of going to the IMF and the World Bank, it can go to private lenders outside Africa. There are very many. So that is what I'm proposing, to limit the debt relief. Because if you are going to borrow in the same institution, which is going to document you and expose you and give you a number that Uganda is number 294 for in one of the defaulters. It's better quietly you go and have an alternative means of borrowing.
I think that's why we have the treasury bonds. The other means that the government gets money, makes gets money from the people.
Who is buying the government bonds?
I think
at this rate.
At
this rate, can African countries afford to float the government bonds?
The last time the Kenyan government did, I can't remember what year, I think it was quite successful, but I think the economic times right now is very difficult, so it might be a challenge.
Which economy in the world is going to buy your bond? Medium's economy? Or Wanda's economy?
As we have Hustler Fund, dog.
I am trying to avoid that route. You talk about the Wahalas. That is an alternative way of borrowing money. Somali nationals abroad are lending governments in Africa money. They have made millions of dollars in terms of properties. A Somali in the United States has got 10 houses. If you calculate your number of houses, you are in about $1.5 billion. And you can borrow money accordingly on those. That's what the Somalis have done. My topic today was to teach some Africans some other ways of working and some governments that are listening to me, Miriam, to seek alternative ways of borrowing. We have very rich people worldwide who want to go through the banks, who want to talk about the money. And I says, I will give you my money and I put your hand on the Bible. If 1 shilling does not come back, 1 hand will go off. Isn't it time for African governments to avoid being listed and ashamed like Ghana, where the Ghanaian president told us that he's not able to pay, therefore they are going to chase him around. They could impound your planes, they could impound your offices in New York or in London. So many things could happen to you. So time has come to look for African solutions. Wahalas, the Somalis, who are very rich, very powerful, they mind the economy. Have you ever asked how Somalia survives?
Yeah.
How does Somalia survive better than Sudan? Are you with me, Mariam, on this?
Somalia, Somaliland.
Somalia itself, Mogadishu, survives better than South Sudan, Juba.
But they're close to each other on that index.
But at least the Somali in Mogadishu have got Wahalas. What are they called, Wahalas?
But Doc, because a debt is a debt is a debt, regardless of where the government is borrowing it from. The end of the day, it has to be serviced. And according to some report I was looking at, the debt service exceeds the core social spending in Africa. The money that is supposed to go to, say, education, health, social protection, that has exceeded by 20% of our, the monies that are meant to be going to these very important sectors in a country. So whether we borrow it from private sector or we borrow it from IMF, the fact remains that these are a debt that the country still owes and the country must service. So should the conversation be around how do we then perhaps streamline or think about of ways where we can reduce our over-reliance on debt and look at some of the issues that surround even these monies that we borrow. Transparency. We've seen countries borrow and we can't even be told what that money did and how it cannot be accounted for. Should we look at debt restructuring? I think we should start thinking about our over-reliance, and I think that is our biggest problem here in the continent. We over-rely so much on this external borrowing, whether external or internal, but borrowing, period. And that is where we have a problem. So can we have ways by which we can run our economies and means in which we can generate our own revenues so that we don't live beyond our means? That is the problem. We live beyond our means by a lot. So it becomes a burden. And now you see a country like Ghana, it is embarrassing. And even us here in Kenya, we're not better off. And that is the example, what is happening across Africa. So should we now start looking at our over-reliance of monies, of external funding and external borrowing? I think that perhaps could be the conversation that could have us looking at ways in which we can support our own economies without necessarily relying so much in what is coming from outside. And that perhaps you can go back to President Uhuru Kenyatta's, you remember the Big Four agenda, because we talked about that so much. We interacted with that agenda for quite a period of time. And you could go through the manufacturing, the intention The intention of some of these things that were put was to ensure that Kenya is able to sustain itself in terms of manufacturing, in terms of producing enough food, in terms of healthcare, in ways that we could manage ourselves. Some of which, a good number of them, President Uhuru Kenyatta was able to meet some of these agendas, but that is something that needs to be continued. It cannot be a one-off. One regime has come, had this agenda, the next regime comes. These are things that should be sustainable. It should be sustainable so that we have an agenda for a country. So regardless of where we have President Ruto today, or we have President Kalonzo after President Ruto, whoever who will come after them, the agenda still remains regardless of who is in power. And that's why, Doc, like where you are there in the UK, it does not matter who is the Prime Minister. The institutions will still run, the economy will still run, and that is what we need. Our politics do not serve us. Our politics do not serve us.
Also, when it has identity crisis.
See, it doesn't serve us. So I think we should look to stop our over-reliance of external funding. Maybe we look for innovative ways to live within our means.
One of the innovative ways I've given you is to use the Sherlocks of Wahalas.
But a debt is a debt is a debt. So we are trying to stop the over-reliance of debt.
Yeah, but Miriam, there is a debt that is publicly announced, and a debt that is silently kept.
Silently kept, but the taxpayer has to still service that debt.
It is better.
At the end of the day.
I think, public announcement of this debt that we are owed 20 trillion is more distressing to African citizens on the continent. Why don't we keep these figures and work out methods and then announce when we have positive? Have I challenged you there?
No, but we borrow in public. Even us here, I think a couple of weeks ago, we received another loan, and the IMF must make it public. So if we borrow in public.
Now you are coming to my point why I protest about the public borrowing. You ask me to sign forms confidentially.
No, that is.
Then you go and display me.
But that is information, you can always find it. You can access that information.
But it's wrong. The banking institutions are not supposed to declare my results, my earnings. It's like a doctor. You go to the doctor and say you have
for
malaria.
You, Doc, as an individual,
no, wait, Miriam.
That is true.
You go to the doctor and you have malaria that has stayed with you for 200 years. It has been in your body, but you didn't come to the doctor. Then the doctor writes to public newspaper and they say Rwanda has malaria.
I think on a personal level, of course,
what kills you must.
Your financial statements and all that should be private, but matters of public interest cannot be private, Doc.
No, public interest to who? Should America? No, let me ask one question. Yeah. Should America know why Kenya or why Uganda has 33 trillion to pay? Why?
Because Uganda borrows in public. They write, there's a process, there's a procedure. So IMF will put on.
Then why don't we come and say everybody in all the banks in Africa, Miriam, declare your account?
Debt transparency, I think.
Yes, we are listening to you.
The problem with declaring sometimes it's only public at times. It comes in with an impact on the production aspect. It comes in with an impact on how this country will now be able to grow in terms of either the sales, marketing, then grow its GDP. In most cases, such information comes in to blackmail the other country in the sense that the information, the public having that information is not bad, but the information in most cases comes in to paint negatively the country of which the negative paintings ends up affecting the GDP of the nation. That country can now easily do business with other countries. That country can now not easily get into, the business terms that will now lead to production of the very country. And that's when now, if we have an alternative of whoever will get you the loan, you will be able to pay the loan. Although I now get a case of the public, because this is a national debt, members of public will now be hidden from knowing what they're supposed to pay, and it's a debt they're supposed to pay. That's the only hook. That we find a way out to unhook ourselves from it, then we're okay with it. But in most cases, what the IMF, the World Bank does is to blackmail a nation with the very information, of which the blackmail in this case, the members of public have the information that this is what this is what your country has borrowed, and this is the much you're supposed to pay. That information is good, but now the information gets the second bit of it, blackmailing part. That the information had a positive intention, but there are different persons, different nations that are now negatively picking it and now not ready to do business with a certain country. Feels like, a business in this country will not flourish because they borrowed money to do business with it, but they've been unable to pay it back. And going there to do business means I will not get anything from that place. That country is poor. And therefore, the information ends up defining a country as poor. And it ends up blocking potential investors. And it's a reason why when you go back to the records, the foreign direct investment in Africa, it's very low. The reason why it's very low is because IMF and World Bank has blackmailed Africa as people who cannot pay back their loans. And if this person cannot pay back their loans, then you can't go investing in them because you'll run at losses. The only danger now that comes with Shylocks, then I get back to what Doc started with, that we do our economics with politics in it, that we do political economy instead of economy of economics. The problem now with politics, if we go the Shylock way, politicians are the ones that are going to be the Shylocks. Politicians are the ones that are going to control everything. Then we'll end up creating the haves and the have-nots that are, the have-nots that will be so many and a very few group of persons that are haves. And in this case, we'll end up creating the dependency that will create so many people that will depend on a few persons. We will not have a uniform growth. So I don't know how we're going to work around this, because IMF, World Bank are blackmailing and leading to very low foreign direct investment in the continent. So the Shylocks will be politicians. We will create so many poor people that will depend on a very few persons. Our politicians do business, and they do business at our expense. They use our sweat and blood to enrich themselves and their families. If they get a clear chance of Shylocking, then they'll be the serious Shylocks.
And the international system thrives in this inequality, we see from the developing countries to developed countries. That is how that system has been designed to work. So more debt burden to these poor countries, the better, because you'll just be struggling to pay off these debts. You'll not have time to actually sit down to plan your own developmental agenda in your country as best as you could. But it is designed to actually operate in that manner. And for Shylocks and politicians, and that money they'll be lending you, most likely they would have stolen from the money they would have borrowed from outside the country. So that's how that works. Doc.
Now, I've listened to what Wanda has said, what Miriam is saying. The ways of reducing debt in Africa is to diversify the conventional economic life into a manufacturing base that will create infrastructure. Britain created infrastructure. Trade came later. That's why Britain is a great country. River Thames was not natural, like a river, like a river Nile, like a Zambezi, like a Congo, like a Orange River, like a Niger River, which runs from one place, a hot desert, and pours in a cold place. Have you seen miracles of God? But River Thames was cut across Britain from the eastern part to the western part of Atlantic. What did it do? What has it done? Allowed to take the goods of Zimbabwe out of the country. The flowers go to Amsterdam. They change them to be product of the Dutch, Holland. They remove stickers. And you go to the supermarket, you are buying to go and seduce a certain lady down the street. The white lady is up there like flowers. So if you don't come with flowers, you have offended her, as if she was born with flowers. You know? My mother grew up and loved my father without flowers. 1955-4, when they got married and produced me later. Buy a plane full of Kenyan pineapples and book them. Nobody wants to touch them. Then it goes in the market. You find a sticker on product of Sainsbury, product of Tesco, but it came from the farm in Thika. What have you not done? You are not utilizing your borrowing. What am I saying here? Africa, you have said here today. The first statement when you said 1 hour and 46 minutes ago was that we have to pass through the... Yes. Mr. Wanda has got from interior, namely copper. Otherwise, there would be no bullets. What would you be killing people with? For our viewers. Suggestion number 1, alternatives to borrowing. We have explained that.